If you have a strange or scary story you'd like to share with the channel, just go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. And of course, thank you. This past July, my husband and I traveled 3 hours to eastern Washington one Saturday to visit some friends for the night who had recently built a beautiful luxury home on the Columbia River. There were 10 of us total, including my husband and I, the owners of the home, their daughter and son-in-law, their daughter's friend, and her husband, and then 2 other friends/coworkers. I had gone shopping at Target a few days prior for food and drinks to bring with us. I kept the drinks on the counter for a day or two, and then put them in the fridge the night before. On the day we left, my husband, who I'll call Chris, packed up the cooler and was busy loading stuff into the car while I checked the fridge one last time to make sure that we got everything. I saw that he had already packed up all of our flavored water and hard cider, but left a bottle of wine that I had put in the fridge the night before. I grabbed it on my way out the door along with my water bottle and another bottle of flavored water for the drive. And since our cooler was already packed up tight in the back of the SUV, I just threw the wine bottle into a canvas bag and set it in the back seat. When we arrived around 4 p.m. that day, we initially left all of our things in the car so we could take a tour of the house, and Chris said he would unpack the car later. We mingled, ate dinner, and sat by the pool admiring the beautiful scenic view of the river. At some point, Chris unloaded the back of the SUV, which had our cooler and overnight bags. He didn't even know I had put the wine bottle in the back seat at the last second, so I made a mental note to get it later. One of the guests, I'll call her Beth, offered some mixed drinks that she had made, so I had 2 of those after dinner, but made sure to hydrate with water in between because it was a hot July day in the desert. Once it got dark outside, 6 of us decided to take a golf cart ride around the neighborhood for about 15 minutes. When we drove back up to the house, I remembered the wine bottle in the back seat of our car, which still needed to be chilled. So I hopped off the golf cart, walked over to our car, which was unlocked, grabbed the bottle out of the canvas bag, closed the door, walked past everyone in the driveway and went inside. I set the wine on the kitchen counter and opened the fridge, which was a French door style fridge. There was really nowhere for it to fit on the shelves, since the bottle was too tall, so it had to go inside one of the doors. I moved a few things around on the left side door and put the bottle of wine right next to a small glass mason jar of something homemade. Then I went outside and sat in the hot tub for several hours. Around midnight we got out. I took a shower, came back outside and sat around the fire with a few others talking until around 2 a.m. Finally, everyone that was still awake went to bed. The next morning we had breakfast and were packing up our things to leave. I realized I never did open the bottle of wine the night before, and since the hosts don't drink wine, I figured I might as well bring it back home with me. So I opened the fridge, and not only was the wine bottle missing, there was no empty spot where it had been either. The fridge was full of other stuff, just no wine. Not a single bottle in sight. I asked Chris if he already packed it up, and he replied that he didn't even know I had brought it with me in the first place, and suggested that maybe someone else had drank it. Since our group was small and only a handful of us were drinking at all, I thought that would be really weird if someone opened the bottle of wine without asking whose it was. I even checked the garbage can for any sign of an empty bottle, but there was nothing. No empty wine glasses anywhere either. Although it didn't add up in my mind, I decided that Chris must be right. Someone else must have drank it, so I let it go. We drove the 3 hours back home that day, and when we pulled up to our house, Chris told me to leave everything in the car and that he would unpack it later. So I just grabbed my water bottle and purse and went inside our house. This is where things get weird. When I opened the fridge to put my water bottle back inside, there it was. The bottle of Chateau Saint Michel Rosé that had gone missing at our friend's house. I was the first one inside of our house, and nobody else lives with us, except our cat. So I truly had no explanation for how the bottle of wine just magically reappeared back in our fridge when it had gone missing from our friend's fridge earlier that day, hours away from us. I even went back in my order history from Target to see if I had actually bought 2 bottles instead of 1. But there was only 1 listed in the order history, and I only remembered having purchased 1 bottle and bringing that 1 bottle with us on the trip and putting it in their fridge. The shopping trip had only been maybe 3 days prior, so I still had a pretty clear memory of everything I bought. I even remembered contemplating buying 2, but decided I only needed 1. We didn't have any other bottles of that specific brand, and that was the only bottle of rosé that we had in the house. So did it teleport? It truly made no sense. This whole thing continued to bother me for the rest of the weekend, so I reached out to the owners of the house the next night and asked if they had any security cameras that would show me walking into the house with a bottle of wine around the time of the golf cart ride. They checked the camera and said that it did not show me going into the house with the bottle of wine at all. The thing is, if the camera had shown me bringing in the wine, then it would have deepened the mystery even more, because then there would have been proof of it having been there. But I know for a fact that I did go to the car, open it, take the bottle out of the bag, walk into the house, set it on the counter, open the fridge, move some things around, and then put it inside the fridge on the left-hand side. This is all a very clear memory for me. When I thought back on it, however, I remember not saying anything to anyone about it at any point. I was going to ask Chris aloud if the car was open, but instead I just walked over to see if it was unlocked, which it was. When I walked past everyone in the driveway holding the wine, I almost said something, but I didn't. When I sat it down on the kitchen counter, I almost said something to Beth as she was standing right there, but for whatever reason, I didn't. I just stayed silent the whole time. I almost felt like if I had spoke words aloud to anyone, then it would break the spell that I seemed to be in. It's hard to explain, but it didn't feel weird or off in any way at the time, only in retrospect. And the only part about it was a subtle feeling that saying anything aloud would have changed things, meaning the teleportation wouldn't have happened if anyone else could have confirmed the wine bottle's presence after the fact. So, for all intents and purposes, nobody that night knew that A, I had a bottle of wine with me, not even my husband, or B, that I was planning to drink it that night. Nothing was said aloud about wine at any point from me or anybody else, and no one else was drinking wine at all. So thinking about it from that perspective, I wonder if I was actually astral traveling during that portion of the night and only thought I had performed all of those actions, but actually did them in the astral realm instead, and it felt like it was happening in our physical realm. Or did the wine bottle actually teleport from their house to ours at some point in less than 24 hours? Or did I jump timelines somehow? Whatever actually happened, it feels like some sort of glitch in the Matrix. The homeowners asked everyone that was there at their house if they had any wine that night, and nobody had. I wasn't drunk either, as I'd only had a few drinks over the course of the entire night and drank plenty of water in between. But I'm certain that if I had decided at any point to go get myself a glass of wine, it would have been there. My memory is very clear. There's just no actual evidence of the wine having ever been at our friend's house. I really have no logical explanation for what happened. But what do you all think? Hi, Raven. I found your podcast through my best friend, who listens to it at night. I got curious and have been enjoying listening to it recently. This weird sort of glitch happened to me, and I thought that I would share it here. The story happened around late Christmas in 2023. At the time, I was an older teenager and had started working at a trampoline park in one of the southern states of the US. They were in desperate need of managerial work there, so I was promoted within the first 2 months. This was a weird experience for me as a teen, because I never really had to be in charge of people. But I quickly found that certain employees were easier to work with than others. The best of these was a guy that I'll call Jack. Jack was the most reliable employee at the park, but he was content to work as a regular attendant rather than a manager or shift lead. He tended to teach me things about my own job simply because he had worked there longer than I had. The first time something strange happened was when I saw Jack upon coming into work near the end of December. I greeted him like I normally did, and he asked me if I remembered seeing him the other day while driving. I hadn't, and I told him so. "That's weird," he told me. "I saw you in your car, and you looked at me and waved." Confused, I asked him what car I was in, hoping to determine if he had just seen a look-alike. "It was a little red car, like a sedan. I don't know what make it was," he replied. I immediately knew that it hadn't been me. I drove my parents' old minivan, a Honda Odyssey, that was bright tan, a color that couldn't be misconstrued as red if you saw it at night with sunglasses on. I told him that it must have been someone else because I didn't drive a red car. "That's wild," he said, looking out at the park with unfocused eyes. "It was like you recognized me. You smiled at me and everything." The way he still called the person "you" made it seem like he didn't believe that it hadn't been me, despite my assurance. Jack commented on seeing me a few more times during that day, mentioning that I had my long hair pulled back in a man bun, and that even looking at my face made him think of the person in that car. My hair wasn't long enough to wear up in a bun back at that time, as I was still growing it out. I brushed off the occurrences at the time, telling myself that of course it had just been someone else who looked uncannily similar. I had a doppelganger in the non-supernatural creature sort of way. Since then, I moved out of my parents' home to a place about 6 hours away, and I bought my own car. Well, it's a small red sedan, and I tend to wear my hair in a bun whenever I go out to keep it from getting in my face. It just crossed my mind recently that I suddenly fit the description of the person that Jack had described. I plan to visit my parents for Christmas this year, and if I look out and see Jack outside my window, I think I'll be convinced that some sort of weird time glitch must have happened. The fact that he described the version of me a year into the future still weirds me out. Hi, Raven. I listen to you when doing chores, gaming, or when not even gaming can distract me enough to stop thinking about how I feel like I'm getting stagnant because of my life situation. I don't seem to have the best of luck obtaining jobs without help. It helps more than one might think to hear others' crazy stories, and you have such a voice for telling them. I thank you for it, as it does help. Thank you. I think I have one for you, however, it's barely even notable. Nor am I sure whether it's a glitch or a ghost story. I was sitting and playing Skyrim, I think it was about a year or two ago, when a palmetto bug crawled across the wall closest to me. You know, the really big roaches that most females will run screeching from, a room away to get away from. My roommate was the one who drew my attention to it, as I was way too engrossed in unaliving bandits in one of the caves near Whiterun. I got up, grabbed a book, and went hunting. I found him, and I nailed him with said book. Where he was, there was absolutely no way to escape without me seeing him, but when I pulled the book away, there was nothing there. No buggy guts and no squished palmetto. Not even a sign of him having fallen before I hit him with it. There was literally no place that he could have gone without me seeing. It was barely notable in hindsight, as I said, but still very, just, random. Hey Raven, here's a story. It's kind of sad, but it goes in your glitch vortex kind of style of stories. It happened a few years back. I'm still getting over it, but I thought that it's something you could read on your podcast. Some things, no matter how often they happen, always make me smile. Like pancakes. No matter what, the first one never works out. With Nate, it became this silly tradition. Every time we made pancakes, he'd snap a Polaroid photo of the terrible first one, and we would laugh at how demented it looked as the picture developed in front of us. We even had an album of them. It was one of those little things that made me love him even more. His ability to laugh with me, to find joy in imperfections. That morning, everything felt perfect. The sun filtered through the kitchen window, and Nate stood there, tall and grinning, dimples showing as he teased me about our latest pancake disaster. I loved everything about him. His warmth, his humor, his ability to make me feel like the luckiest person in the world. After breakfast, we added the latest Polaroid to our little album, and then headed to pick up our new puppy. The day was bright, one of those days where you would feel like the world is smiling on you. But then something strange happened. We were driving when this wave of nausea hit. Out of nowhere, it was overwhelming, like the air itself had turned against us. I had to pull over, my stomach was churning and my head spinning. And Nate looked just as sick, but beyond that, he looked confused. Like something wasn't right at all. Maybe we had driven through some kind of gas leak or something. I asked him if he was okay, and he nodded, but then he said something that made my heart stop. He thought that we were on our way to my parents' house for lunch. I stared at him, telling him no, we were picking up our new puppy. But he seemed so sure and so convinced that we had other plans. At first I thought it was just a weird miscommunication, but as the day went on, little things started to pile up. Things that I couldn't ignore. Nate ordered a latte at the cafe instead of his usual black coffee. He talked about memories that didn't exist, like weekends we would supposedly spend at places that I'd never been. When I asked him about it, he gave me this look like I was the one who was forgetting something, but I knew I wasn't. I tried to brush it off. People change, right? Maybe he just felt like trying something new. But deep down, I knew that it was more than that. He wasn't just changing, he wasn't my Nate anymore. I didn't want to believe it at first. I kept telling myself that it was all in my head. But every time he did something different, like the way he suddenly folded his clothes differently or used phrases I've never heard him say before, it felt like another crack in our world. Like a thread unraveling slowly. I started noticing things about him that used to be so familiar but now felt foreign. The way he smiled, it wasn't the same. His laugh didn't have that infectious warmth anymore. It was like looking at someone I knew but didn't know at all. And then there was his smell. It wasn't a cologne thing, it was his natural scent. The kind that every person has. The scent that's uniquely theirs. His was gone, replaced by something unfamiliar. I could never seem to get used to it. It was just one more reminder that the Nate I loved wasn't there anymore. Eventually, I told him, I think we must have gone through some kind of vortex. You switched dimensions or realities. Normally, Nate would laugh at something like that. He wasn't the kind of person to believe in anything paranormal, but this time he didn't laugh. He looked at me, nodded, and said, maybe you're right. That's when it hit me. He wanted to believe it. He wanted to believe we could reverse it, that we could get him back to his reality, or back to his Sarah. We tried to make it work. We really tried. I kept telling myself that maybe we just needed time, that whatever weird shift had happened between us would eventually settle down. We even went back to the spot where the nausea hit, driving through over and over, hoping that somehow it would reverse whatever had gone wrong, but it never worked. We were stuck. And with each attempt, it felt like my Nate was slipping further away from me. There were things that he missed about the other me. The way she used to sing in the shower, something I never did. Or how she loved hiking, a hobby that I never shared. He'd mention these things, not realizing that those memories weren't mine. And as much as I tried to convince myself that he would be happier with her, I knew deep down that he wouldn't. She wasn't me. He wasn't a hiker. At most, he might glamp if you paid him enough. I remember one night lying in bed staring at the ceiling and crying because I realized he was gone. Really gone. The Nate that I knew, the one who would laugh with me over messed up pancakes and talk about our future, it was stuck in some other version of our reality. And no matter how hard we tried, we could not get back there. We couldn't fix it. Eventually, we both knew that it was over. We were trying so hard to hold on to something that wasn't real anymore. The truth was, we weren't each other's people anymore. Not in this reality. And that was the hardest part. We broke up quietly. No anger, no big argument, just an understanding that we had lost each other somewhere between dimensions. And I cried knowing that somewhere, in that other version of reality, there's a me and him still together. But I also know that he probably wasn't any happier there. She wasn't me and I wasn't her, and neither of us would be the people we needed in that moment. I hope that he finds someone else, though. Someone who can make him as happy as we once were. Maybe not that other me, but someone. He deserves that. But in this reality, all I have are the memories and photos of a better life. I sometimes look at our silly pancakes and smile and send Nate my love with a kind of prayer out to the universe, or wherever he is. I started my new job not too long ago, working for a non-profit organization that's deeply personal to me. It's a place focused on giving back to the community, and being in the new role, I wanted to make the best impression on my team and supervisor. I'd been spending a lot of time getting the hang of things, learning the ropes, and making sure I didn't miss any details. This glitch happened about a week ago. I'd been deep in focus mode one morning, hammering away at my first monthly report. I wanted to make sure that it was perfect. Every sentence was scrutinized, every statistic double-checked, all in an effort to impress my boss. Since I was making great progress, I decided I would take a late lunch just to get the report wrapped up before breaking my stride. I have 2 phones, one for work and one for personal use. I'd been so engrossed in work that I hadn't checked my personal phone for a while. It's always on silent while I'm at the office, to avoid the constant barrage of app notification and calls that might annoy my coworkers. But when I did finally glance at it, I noticed a missed call. It was from a number that I didn't recognize, though it had the same area code and first 3 digits as mine. Strange, but not unheard of. I got the call around 12:50 p.m., but I didn't answer it. Sometimes I get spam calls or people dial the wrong number. Since there wasn't any voicemail, I assumed it wasn't anything important and went back to work. A little while later, I checked my phone again. There was a text message from that same number. "Who's this?" The message gave me pause. I've had this number for 12 years, so I wasn't about to start giving out personal details to a stranger. Instead, I responded with, "Who is this?" Seconds passed and my phone buzzed again. "You called me," the message read. I frowned, my fingers hovering over the screen. What? I hadn't made any calls that day, especially not to this number. I double-checked my call log and nothing. No outgoing calls at all. The only thing listed was their call to me at 12:50 p.m. I hadn't made any pocket dials either. Feeling increasingly uneasy, I texted back, "When?" Their response came quick, 12:30. I checked the time and it was just past 1 p.m. I was sure that I hadn't even moved from my chair since I'd started working on my report. I hadn't made any calls, let alone to this stranger. I replied, "That wasn't me. I only received a call from you." My phone buzzed again. This time they had sent a screenshot of their call log and there it was, my phone number. Not once, but twice. I had allegedly called this person at exactly 12:30 according to their logs. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I stared at the screen trying to make sense of it. How could my number have called someone when I never touched my phone? Was someone spoofing my number? Or was this something stranger? I quickly replied, "That's bizarre. I didn't make any calls. It could be a scam using my number. You should block it." I set the phone down, but my mind was racing. A scam seemed like the logical explanation. People can spoof numbers. It's not uncommon. But why would it feel so wrong? Could someone have really been calling using my number? Could it have been some glitch with my phone or something deeper? Some nagging thought whispered at the back of my mind. Something I didn't want to admit. Was this a scam or was it a glitch in the Matrix? A tear in the fabric of reality? I've read stories about people experiencing strange overlaps in time. Cases where people swear they saw themselves in places they shouldn't be, or received messages they never sent. Was that what was happening here? I glanced at my phone again, half expecting another message. What if there was someone else? Some other version of me out there? The rest of the day passed uneventfully, but the incident haunted me. I kept checking my phone, half hoping for an explanation that would make sense. Was this just a trick of modern technology, or had I somehow crossed paths with another reality? That night, as I lay in bed, I stared at my phone. Should I get a new number? Was my current one compromised somehow? The thought of changing it felt like giving in to whatever strangeness had happened, but maybe it was safer that way. I rolled over and tried to fall asleep, but sleep wouldn't come. My thoughts kept drifting back to that moment. I wondered, was it a coincidence or something more? Would I ever have the truth? Or had I simply caught a glimpse of something beyond my understanding? Some sliver of the unknown that exists just behind the fabric of our everyday lives. I don't know. Maybe I'll never know. But I haven't been able to shake the feeling that somewhere, in some other reality, another version of me is asking the same question. So that, my friends, was a collection of some Glitch in the Matrix stories here on the As the Raven Dreams channel cast. I don't know what we are anymore. Anyways, Glitch in the Matrix stories. Stories that highlight and make profound the strangeness, oddities of our existence that make us question whether or not we are in a simulation. Yeah. You know what they are. By this point, I'm assuming. if you've listened to anything on my channel that's come out on a Monday or any of the more popular videos on my channel, the glitch videos, then you know for a fact the glitch stories are the strange and bizarre, right? I don't know, they're just weird stories that I read and you guys listen to them. That's what they are, and that's what I accept that they are. It doesn't matter in the end. They're fun stuff. They're good to listen to. They're fun. They're entertaining. They're interesting. And by gum, they are weird. Yeah. Anyways, hopefully you, my friends, all enjoyed these Glitch in the Matrix stories. If you did, please do consider hitting the thumbs up button, the like button. That should make it glow for you. And doing so tells the YouTube algorithm, that you like the video, that you enjoyed the content. It doesn't mean it's bad or good, it just means that you personally liked it. Fun fact, hitting dislike doesn't tell YouTube that the video is bad. All that does is tell the system you personally did not like the video, did not enjoy the content. That's it. So, disliking altogether does nothing, really. But liking is an interaction which helps the video get pushed into the algorithm further. So consider doing that if you like the video. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard, consider subscribing. That'd be awesome of you to do. You can also join Patreon memberships, get early access to content like this and other content. Go to the KO-FI, that's coffee, link down below in the description to buy a hand-signed and numbered poster. And you can also do a super thanks, which is a tip to the channel. Never expected, always appreciated. You can listen on other platforms such as Spotify, Audible, Apple Podcasts, etc., Pandora is another one. I always do that. I always say etc. and then say Pandora, because I remember that it exists after I say etc. Because nobody listens to Pandora anymore, and it's sad. I remember whenever Pandora used to be like the top tier music listening website, before Spotify got big. Good stuff. Anyways, listen there, listen here. It's up to you where you listen. I just appreciate you listening at all. The other thing we do on Monday videos, or glitch videos specifically, the first glitch videos of the week, if there's an extra one, is what we call the word of the week. Last week, a number of you left comments on my video featuring the word of the week. On the screen right now, and several moments prior to this moment in time, is the collection of screenshots I pulled from those videos. Those videos from that video, from last week's glitch stories collection. Of the comments with the word of the week. What am I even saying anymore? Thank you to each and every single one of you who are on the screen right now, because you went above and beyond and left a comment with the word of the week, and I appreciate it more than I could ever say. If you didn't, that's totally fine. I never expect anyone to, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Moving on, this week. The word of the week is a little more compact and dense in form. The word of the week is condensed, which means to reduce to a more compact or dense form. It also means having a face narrower than that of a standard typeface, if you're using fonts as your sentence, I guess. So things like cheddar condensed would be a font, is a font that I've seen, I think. I've used condensed fonts, but you get my point. Reduce to a more compact or dense form. Make smaller. Condensed. There you go. Use it, get in the video next week. All that said, friends, hope you have a beautiful week. Hope I see you again here very soon. But until then, remember that you are loved, that you are valid, that you are important. You are the best you that you can be. Do not forget it, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Until next time, my friends, much love, and sleep well.